I would like to comment on a thing that forgot to, or I sort of overlooked or overheard in the last video. And it's where in my video at around 23:45, that Bernardo says suffering is a part of nature. Now, I'm not quite sure if nature has been defined in this discussion. I'm pretty sure that it hasn't. Um, and when something is, it's this thing about the definition of existence, right? And nothing exists but there is mind. And then suffering is a part of nature. That's a freaking weird statement, right? Because then nature is everything, and mind is also everything, and subjectivity is everything, and consciousness is everything, and it's sort of everything is everything. So there's nothing, right? If suffering is a part of nature, then your mind is a part of nature, right? Is that this the always this omnipresent mind thing that you can always tap into and say, well, it's all mind, so therefore everything I can talk about is also a part of mind, and then I can talk about everything because everything is a part of mind. So nothing is connected to anything because everything is connected to everything, right? So they're lost in this sort of multitude singularity. I don't know what word to put on it, right? And I mean, I can only see this as an attempt to confuse me sufficiently into thinking I'm not worthy of this big thing. So I have to I have to bow down and let myself be, dry raped by their philosophy, right? Like the interviewer does here, right? The moderator. He says, I'm not worthy of this. You are the big minds. I'm just an insignificant, useful idiot who's just here to interview you, masters of philosophy, right? Don't fall for that trap. I beg you, think for yourself. As soon as you run into something where you think, I don't think this works for me, stay with that thought because it's possibly the best part of your unconscious mind or something like that is trying to tell you don't go with this shit, right? It's at least it's possible, right? Suffering is a part of nature is a Bernardo Kastrup statement, right? So suffering can be a part of something. Now I know this might be a figure of speech and so on, right? But these are foundational things. You cannot screw around with the terms and come back to me and say, yeah, but it's not supposed to be understood this way or that way or the other way. Fuck you then, right? Don't throw around these as if it's sort of is cut in stone, my philosophy here, right? And then if I try to challenge it, yeah, but it shouldn't be understood like this. You have heard these kind of people who does this, right? When you try to actually challenge them on their understandings of the term they use and the terms, how they put the terms together, they sort of back up and say, I don't have to define anything for you, right? Man, everybody understands this already. I don't have to, right? Seen it so many times, right? Okay, something that is being a part of something, that's something it's a part of must be a thing, something that exists. If there is a part, you are making an ontology of some kind where something is a part of something else, so to say, right? And that must refer to some kind of existence within that general term of things called mind. You to refer to your reduction base, right? So if it's a part of something, then that something must be able to be partitioned into smaller things, right? And for one thing, you can't do that if it's a reduction base, right? If there's mind, basically you have to say mind, right? Done. Philosophy is taken care of. Mind, everything is done. That's the reduction base. And everything is mind, right? You can't build on top of mind because there is no connection to anything else, because it's sort of an artificial abstraction that is sort of labeled to everything you can talk about, right? So what could possibly be a part of mind, right? You're not. It's like if you are splitting your reduction base, if you're reducing you can't. Let me say it this way: you can't reduce your reduction base. That is given within the term of reduction, right? So if nature is saying part of nature, and nature is a substitute for the idea of mind, and mind is the reduction base, then he's saying suffering is a subset of mind. Then he's reducing mind, right? Which is a reduction base. It's so idiotic. I mean, it's... I don't know why I overlooked this, right? But it's can be this throwing around term and now I'm using a different term for this and a different term for that. And dragging you around in this circus ring of, philosophical terms that sort of numb you into submission of some kind, right? Or at least attempt to, right? Well, they're not going to drag me into submission here, right? It's stupid. And I also wrote in my comment here, so I just to reiterate on it, right? So either his mind is a part of nature, or he has access to some external suffering that inflicts itself on him somehow, right? Yeah, it's like if suffering is a part of nature, and nature is an attempt to describe that which is beyond experience, then suffering is outside his experiences. How can it be outside his experiences? And if it's not a part, what is nature then? If suffering is a part of your experience. So nature is inside your experiences, right? Then what about that big world out there, right? It's just, there is no heads or tails in this, right? So it's like having your cake and eat it too, right? Okay.
Our current experience. These are misrepresentations of this understanding and do lead to nihilistic conclusions. And then everybody on the internet, everybody says, oh, well, everybody's just saying the same thing and expressing the same understanding. No, that's not true. They're not. It all comes under the umbrella.
Not true again, right? I don't know if I mentioned, I'm winding back a bit here, so I'm repeating some of what was stated in the last video by them, right? It's true, and knowledge and certainty and all these terms are just, slapped in your face without any prior description or definition of any kind, right? I think I mentioned this in the last video, but it's worth mentioning or repeating. If you just casually throw around these terms, true and knowledge and certainty, right? When you're doing this sort of a base level metaphysics, as best I understand what they're doing here, right? Then it implicitly shows that you don't have the sufficient sensitivity towards what you're doing, right? And it smells to me like you have this pet subject that you have done a lot of thinking about, but the rest of what you can do philosophy about, notably epistemology and ethics, is just something you sort of drag in whatever you need it into your metaphysics, as if metaphysics is everything, right? I don't buy it, right? It's a lack of a deeper understanding, in my opinion, of what it entails to do good and rigid philosophically in a broader sense of things, right? In a treatise manner.
Of non-duality, but if you look carefully, you have extreme opposite understandings purporting to be the same recognition. So this gentleman, I would suggest, that has either misunderstood what is being said or has been watching the wrong videos.
Bernardo, how has this understanding then infused your own life with meaning, so that anyone listening could perhaps absorb some of that?
Just a quick comment before I get there. I think what Rupert just said is the most...
so people can absorb some of what he has been infused with. So I could potentially absorb an infusion in Bernardo, absorb an infusion, right?
Important thing of this entire event today, what he has just said. Look, it is imaginable that if suffering in your life has come to a point where it has become so completely unbearable that nihilism seems like paradise. It's a way out of that. There's no point in this whole thing. There's no point to the suffering. It's all for nothing anyway. So why worry? Milan Kundera called it the unbearable lightness of being. And there's a character in his book, Dr. Tomasz, who is sort of the embodiment of this lightness of being, of this nihilism, which gives a certain lightness to what's going on. And that can be alluring to some people if they are desperate enough. Now, my own relationship with the core of my being and the world and other people and life in general is not nihilistic at all, much to the contrary. For me, materialism was highly nihilistic. There is only matter. Whatever insights you have come to a complete end when you die. So whatever you learn, whatever maturity you accumulate, it's all for nothing. Anyway, that's nihilistic. Today, I live the reality that there's tremendous meaning to whatever suffering I have, because they are.
That there is meaning. It's like I am forcing meaning upon me in order to say I have meaning. I haven't heard any good explanation on what this meaning is. It may be, coming, but so far they're talking about meaning without clarifying what the hell they mean, right? By what do you mean by meaning, right? It's like, this is just, walking around the sort of this kind of sort of walking around the core topic without actually approaching it, right? But talking about it while you're walking around it and sort of eluding people to think that you're actually doing something, but you're just close to it without going all the way, right? Sort of, it stays in this word salad mode. It doesn't get to the point, not so far, right?
The conduits to insights, and these insights are eternal in the sense of being outside time.
So now we are talking about outside time. We haven't talked about time so far, right? Now we are sort of the meaning outside time. Now these jumps are like, I'm just going to say that's meaning outside time, right? You need to come with some bit of clarification here, man, right? Because otherwise this is to be classified as crazy, mystic, woo-woo shit, right? I mean, I can't believe how ridiculously badly argued this is, right? I as I have studied Bernardo and the people around this circle of whatever, right? People. It comes more and more clear to me that there actually isn't any real philosophy there. When I dig down and find, what are the definitions and do these definitions work? Doesn't seem to me, and terms are used, equated and or what's it, conflated, left and right? Sort of, and things just pop into, now it's a part of this discussion. Time is a part of this discussion, and there's also a realm beyond time. As if that, holy shit, man, where did that come from, right? It's just the same thing that he's spouting every time he's on a podcast, Bernardo, right? If you go back in time and listen to all the videos he's done with people on YouTube, all the podcasts and so on, it's the same freaking story every time. I don't find any rigid philosophy here. Nothing. I mean, I'm deeply skeptical about this, right? And if I was skeptical about it before I encountered Bernardo Kastrup, I'm even more skeptical about idealism at this point, right? I am bordering on classifying idealism as crazy woo-woo shit, right? Made up in order to connect some dots to validate something that is based on psychology rather than philosophy. In order to validate the bullshit that you were force-fed as a child, right? So that you don't have to say that mommy and daddy were crazy and use that to control you, right? Which is the same like you are waking up feeling like your parents are slave masters, right? Screwing with your mind in order to control you, right? Nobody wants to find that out. So they rather come up with some elaborate philosophy slash woo-woo shit slash mysticism slash whatever you can find, and then try to piece it together to something that looks, sounds like mommy and daddy are not crazy, right?
Life is what provides the universe with a perspective, a point of view on itself that it would otherwise not have, and therefore life is pregnant with purpose and meaning. The world of appearances is now a book to be read. It's the superficial image of a deeper truth. There is a dimension of depth.
Oh yeah. We are walking around that wall. We are sort of walking along the wall of experiences, trying to. Oh, it might be something outside telling us a story. We just have to interpret the story. And then we might have an idea of what it goes beyond the wall, right? Because that's where the big mind is. That's where the truth is. That's why, the Platonic ideal, you don't sit there in your cave. Free yourself of your chains and walk out into the one sun, the one thinking, the one mind, and come back and tell us, everybody, Jesus of philosophy, the king of philosophy, how the big real world is rather than this stupid, capitalistic, tyrannical, experiential, materialistic world where you just have to go to work and just pay taxes. Of course you have to pay taxes, otherwise we don't have a government, right? Fuck off, man.
Meaning and significance to the entire world that wasn't there before. Everything you are surrounded with now is a dance of symbols.
Oh, now we are getting poetic even, right? A dance of symbols. Yes. My colors and my sound is really a dance of symbols, right? It's symbolism. The big mind is trying to communicate with me and give me meaning, because I can't find meaning. But I'm not a solipsist, and I'm not a nihilist. No, there's so much meaning, and I'm just trying to interpret it and tell you what is going on the wall is meaning the big mind is trying to give you, right?
That point at something beyond themselves, the point to something fundamental to mind, the mind of the universe, to consciousness.
The mind of the universe. What? Now nature is called universe, right? So there's sort of 4 or 5 terms used for all that. And, is it all that? Or are they subsets, right? I mean, it's like, it's all, I feel so fucking manipulated at this point, right? I'm used to these kinds of, woo-woo shit philosophy, right? So I don't feel it deeply at the moment, but I react to it immediately when I hear this, as it compounds all these terms that are stacked on top of each other. Right now we're talking about universe. A few minutes ago it was nature, and before that it was consciousness, and before that it was suffering, and before that it was mind, and before that whatever, right?
And there is a point to this particular seemingly individual state we are in right now, in trying to make sense of this. I mean, this is the antithesis of nihilism. This is the universe pregnant with meaning. This is life.
So now the universe is pregnant, and before it was a dance of symbols. Oh, I know when people are using terms this way, right? They are trying to screw with your mind. They're trying to be, what is it? Sophistry, yes. But it's this, when they use terms in this half-ass poetic manner, right? It's like trying to create a romantic, extended, emotional approach to, right? They're manipulating your emotions somehow, right? They're not trying to be strictly philosophical, because that doesn't have necessarily the same impact as saying the dance of symbols, right? The pregnant universe. Universe is pregnant with meaning, or whatever the fuck it was, right? What the hell does that mean? What, who has the universe been fucking in order to be pregnant with meaning, right?
Pregnant with purpose. It is baffling that someone would equate this with nihilism.
People often talk about purpose and the need for purpose, and how it provides happiness, and it's correlated with longevity and all sorts of things. And I'm reminded of that Alan Watts quote about the purpose of life is just simply, to be alive, nothing more than that. And yet everyone sort of runs around in a blind panic, feeling they need to achieve something beyond themselves. So could you then, under this model then, is just the simple fact of being alive purpose enough in itself?
But why do you need a purpose, right? It's also presuppositional in a way. It's like, of course we need to look for a purpose, because people are asking these questions. Well, first of all, why do we need a purpose? Is it because that it feels empty just going around existing, so to say, right? It feels empty. Okay, so let's say there is a need for a purpose, right? Or that you as an individual come up with the conclusion, I need a purpose in this. Now, why would I, if I need a purpose, start to ask somebody else about that purpose? Because I can't let anybody else tell me about my purpose. Maybe that's the whole fucking problem, that people feel that they need a purpose, and then they're going to look around and see who can give me a purpose. As this guy does here, right? The interviewer, I know he's sort of a devil's advocate in some way, or he has to ask questions, and deep questions, right? Well, the universe is pregnant with meaning, right? So what the hell do you need to ask Bernardo for, right? I didn't know that the universe was pregnant with meaning, right? I don't know where the universe has been screwing around, being knocked up by meaning, right? It's this way of screwing with your mind, screwing with your understanding, taking away your individual ability to get to conclusions, right? They keep saying, oh, it's all about individualism, and you even become more individual by this. But you can't reach the conclusions. You have to ask me for purpose. You have to ask me for meaning. You have to be, access the pregnant universe and whatever, right? So it's like it's a bit like Christianity, where they say, yes, you have to obey, but you have free will, right? You have to obey me, but still I can always come and say you have free will, right? Therefore you're not obeying because you have free will. And in this sort of circle of manipulation, it feels the same way, right? Yes, you are very individual, but you have to come and ask me about the pregnant universe, right?
I would suggest not. Because if that were the case, everyone who is alive, and that is everyone, would feel fulfilled. Their purpose had been accomplished. That's not the case. Most people do not feel fulfilled.
How do you know? Sort of a conjecture or a statistical generalization of some kind, right? Maybe that people constantly pound on them and talk about meaning makes them anxious about maybe I should have some meaning, whether there isn't any meaning. And what creates anxiety is that hunt for meaning that isn't there or might not be where you're trying to look for it, right? I'm always, I'm on my toes whenever people start to lecture me about meaning and purpose, and it always ends up in some kind of cloud castle woo-woo shit, right? Let's see what he says.
What is the overarching drive in most people's lives? To get rid of their suffering, which stated in the positive means to find happiness.
No, I don't think necessarily it is. He's just conjuring up something he wants to be the case. And sort of, it's so fluffy that people are willing to possibly go there and say, yeah, I guess I want to get rid of suffering. But that's not really what you're doing, right? Because if I go to the dentist, as I talked about in a previous part, I will have to have pain, right? But, the pain is a hurdle I need to get over in order to get to the other side, but there's less pain, right? So I get some pain now to get rid of pain and even worse pain later. So you can say it's a relative term. It's about costs and benefits, right? You can't remove suffering if you in any way equate suffering with pain. Because then you will end up procrastinating all sorts of shit and then get a tsunami of suffering later on, right? It's be careful with this, right? Because when we are talking about meanings of life or meanings of your life, potentially anybody's life, you might align yourself with something that might feel good in the now, but you're just procrastinating all sorts of shit into the future, then they will hit you like a ton of bricks, right? Be careful. Be careful.
To be at peace. So I would say, I actually think we have two purposes. I don't think it's enough to simply say the purpose of life is to find happiness. I think that is our primary motivation, and it relates to our inner experience. But I think there's a symmetrical purpose that relates to the way we live and act and relate in the world. So I think we could say that the purpose on the inside is to find peace, to find happiness. But our purpose on the outside is to express this understanding, to live this understanding, and communicate it, to demonstrate it, to share it, to celebrate it in our activities and relationships.
So sorry, Bernardo, just quickly. But the hunt for purpose.
So he's just, what I'm hearing is, this is what I like, so therefore everybody likes it, right? There's no room for think for yourself kind of philosophy here, right? It's also this is the conclusion, right? There's no philosophy, there's no thinking there, there's no presentation of any kind of thinking, or I'm reasoning from this point to this point to this point. How do you get to this? From your reduction base, right? Where the hell is the reduction base in all this philosophy? You pointed out the importance of this reduction base, and it's never referenced, other than when you need to say something about your reduction base, you're basically just saying it's all mind, or it's all universe, or it's all whatever word is in favor at the moment, right?
As it's currently understood, though, might that not be a way of seeking to alleviate the unhappiness that is instigated by the sort of misunderstanding of reality as it is?
Sorry, I haven't understood your question, Simon.
So people talk about purpose or goals, let's say. I've got, when I find my purpose of, I don't know, whatever it may be, or I achieve a goal, let's even say it's running a marathon, I don't know, whatever it may be, then I will be happy. That understanding of purpose and goals, is that not, that's just a misunderstanding of the alleviating unhappiness.
So if we, in that case, if we stated our purpose as winning a marathon, that would be a superficial purpose. If you said to the person, if winning the marathon, if you could be...
But what if that expression you talked about, I want to express myself, what is that if that expression is a marathon? Right? So it's like, no, it's just so fluffy, this, right? And the fluffiness is the problem, because you can't sort of quickly settle on whether or not you are willing to go along with this philosophy or not, because it's so fluffy. So you have to keep coming back and analyzing it, right? Maybe to some extent like I do here, right? And still be confused about what they're actually talking about. And this is what creates this kind of cultish congregation kind of gathering around it. Because people come back in order to, maybe I can find something that I actually like in this philosophy, rather than having something that is strict and straight to the point, so you quickly can say, this is for me, this is not for me, right? I don't like this fluffiness. I fucking hate it with a vengeance, right?
Guaranteed that winning the marathon would make you miserable. Would you still train for it? They would say no. If you said to the person, if you ask somebody what they want above all else, they say, I'm longing for an intimate relationship. And then they say, okay, I can give you an intimate relationship, but I guarantee it will make you miserable. Do you still want it? No way. In other words, it's not the intimate relationship, the $1 million, the 2 children, the beautiful house.
Yeah, but he is sort of saying, I can already give you what you feel in the future, right? He's manipulating you now, right? But he's going to sit here and tell you, well, you will feel like this when you're done with it, right? As if he's somebody who can speak to you about your future feelings, right? Right, Mr. Woo-woo shit guy there, right? I don't buy any of this bullshit, right? It gets worse and worse and worse. Just listen very carefully to what is said between the lines. Read between the lines, right? The less there is between the lines, the better philosophy it is, right? When they start to talk about the dance of symbols and the pregnant universe and so on, right? It's sort of bordering, okay, these are crazy people, right?
It's not, we only want these things because we believe...
Well-functioning crazy people, mind you.
That the happiness and the peace, which is what we really want, will be derived from or provided by them.
Right. Bernardo, anything to add before I get us back on track?
I'm passionate about this point. I think we go wrong when we imagine purpose to be something that we determine and define. When we sit down and make a bucket list or a list of things that we define as our personal goals, because those purposes are false purposes and they are ultimately not fulfilling. Once you realize those goals...
Remember to flush out. Taking a piss online.
You become cognizant that they were ghosts. You don't get the fulfillment that you were expecting from them. When you buy the big house, when you drive your Ferrari, when you have your trophy wife, these things turn out to be gaseous.
So your wife is gaseous? Gaseous? Gaseous clay. That's also an analogy or metaphor, right? It's staying in metaphor land and abstraction land, right? And fluffy land, in order to, poke at your mind in order to make you feel like they're doing something. They're just screwing with you, right? Now, I am getting very close to halfway through this, right? I am just about halfway through this. And judging from my prior experiences with deconstructing Bernardo Kastrup, he is willing to have me ultimately shot for, commenting or deconstructing the discourse here, right? Philosophy. Using the government and ideas of copyright and legality and which is basically appealing to murder because you don't want people to do whatever it is you don't want people to do, right? At least threaten with violence in order to make you comply, right? If you don't understand that is what government is doing, right? Go listen to a clip by Barack Obama where he says that government is a monopoly on violence, right? So whenever you appeal to anything that is government, you are appealing to violence, right? So these guys are willing to have me shot and killed for making this kind of deconstruction if I do it in a more elaborate fashion than they like, right? So let me just carry on, and when we have done with him stating whatever he states here, I think we will be done with this deconstruction series.
No, you run your fingers through them. You can't grab hold of them. So I think this...
So the wife you are living with at the moment, because I understood that you have a wife who's an artist, right? I have nothing against artistry or art, but they tend to be... There are more crazy people in art than there are normal people, I would say, right? And I'm not bashing artists because, of course, there are also decent people who are artists, but they tend to be very keen on communism, let me say, right? They wouldn't maybe not say it outright because they would have to align themselves with people like Lenin and Stalin and all sorts of oppressive, murderous government, right? But basically that's what it is. Because artists can't survive without the government subsidizing them somehow, right? So you're saying the person you're not living with is either the person he's living with is either a gaseous thing because it's a trophy wife, or the wife is not a trophy, so she's not hot enough to be ungaseous, right? So this, I mean, it's like, what the hell are we doing here, right? Gaseous, give me a fucking break, man.
Kind of projected ego purposes are illusions that will lead to disillusionment because they almost, their power resides in their not being achieved. Because then you project the true meaning, the true purpose.
It is the old rejection of the actual experiential world. This is where it's going. Now I can't go further than halfway through this, right? So don't come and blame me afterwards for not referring to things that are beyond the scope of this deconstruction, right? And say I'm taking things out of context by not deconstructing all of it, please. Okay, I think you understand that, right? But it's what I'm hearing is slowly working away from direct experiences, right? Desires and sexual desires, or economic desires, however you want to put it. You want a big car or this, whatever, right? Which is basically a tool to get sexual desires, right? Women want the men with the big cars and so on. Therefore, there are big cars, right? And he can very well sit there and be very lecturing about it when he's actually been doing that for many years, right? Having a great job with earning a lot of money and having a trophy wife and a big house and whatever, right? And now he has sort of come to the realization after the fact, right? While he's sitting on millions of euros in order to do what he does, right? Which he made by working in a high-flying, employment somewhere in a company, right? He may be even owning the company. I don't know. But I don't know exactly. But he had been a high-level executive in a company, I believe, right? making millions a year, I would presume, right?
Of nature, you project it on them. And then they have luminosity, they have that drive. But once you achieve them,
Luminosity? I don't know what that is, so I can't comment on that.
we realize that was not it.
That's also a bit, finding some kind of fancy academic term, luminosity, and just throwing it out there to make it look like you're so smart. You know these fancy words, you don't have to explain them, right? You're just dropping them to, you're duping your listeners into thinking that you're very, very smart, and therefore implicitly, fallaciously, should take you as some kind of guidance towards meaning and purpose and understanding and insight and whatever, right? Bullshit.
That said, I do have a teleological view of nature. The universe is dynamic. It's changing, it's unfolding, it's evolving. And if all of that is the image of conscious
evolving? So you're just extrapolating the idea of the world that is experiential and just extrapolating it out and placing your own experience as a subset of that larger mind thing. It doesn't work, right? Anybody could do that without any kind of, I have no checkpoints in order to say whether or not this is a valid kind of philosophy. How would I check this? This is a very, very old problem in philosophy, in my opinion, that people just jump into cloud castles and then, as I said before, right, and then start to bring on all sorts of shit that they want to be there because they like it to be there, right? They want it to be a part of their philosophy. They want to cut the ties to experience so they can go on and fabulate about all sorts of abstract bullshit to convince you to follow them, right? Be fucking careful with this.
There seems to be a conscious impetus behind it. Otherwise, the universe would remain in whatever state it is, because that would be good enough. So I think the key is when you realize that it's not about you, it's not about your little egoic goals, it's about surrendering to what nature wants to do through you. To what nature wants to...
man. Oh, man, right? What nature wants to do through you. You are just a little tool, right? You are insignificant little speck with no significance, no importance. The big mind is just unfolding. And, if he wants to get rid of anxiety, right? Oh my God. This monster that he cannot experience directly but has conjured up as an understanding of his metaphysics is just trambling along. Trotting on you because you're just some little insignificant bubble within this larger mind that is so much more important. It's not about you. It's not about your little pathetic life, right? You little snotty peon, right? Shut the fuck up and listen to, I've been talking to the big mind. So listen to me. I am the Jesus of philosophy. My father is out there speaking to me. Oh, man. As I say, the world is run by crazy people, right? The world is run by psychopaths, crazy people, and useful idiots, right? And, make your own judgments where we are in this case, right? Whoa, I would bet on crazy people here, right? A combination of useful idiots and crazy people.
Manifest through you or learn through you.
So you don't have free will. This isn't an explanation why you don't have free will. The big mind is doing stuff through you, right? Yes, he has said several times, it's not me writing my books. It's the big mind working its ways through me. It sort of commands me to write books. Yes, because my big daddy, government, big daddy mind outside has told me to do it, right? That's what's going on. It's the big mind doing it, right? Sorry about that dinging. So it's about getting rid of, what's the term I'm looking for? Responsibility, right? It's about getting rid. If you don't have responsibility of your life, things are just unfolding through you. Then the meaning is that whatever is unfolding, that's the pregnancy of that mind that is working through him. But he's just a tool for expression by something that is bigger than himself, right? That is working through him. So he's sort of, I mean, if this doesn't sound like some kind of nihilism, it's just a freaky kind of idealist nihilism instead, right? I'm not responsible. There is no free will. I can't do anything about it, so I just have to follow along, right?
And this kind of purpose is not something that you can write down on a piece of paper and say, I will have achieved this purpose by year X. It doesn't work like that. It's a continuous unfolding.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going. You only know if you develop the sensitivity for it.
You can't know because it's beyond knowing, right? Knowing must be anchored into experience, right? Otherwise, your knowledge is just based on your cloud castles, right? And who gives a fuck about this reduction-based called mind? Because it seems you can go anywhere you want anyway. So you're not. It's a reduction base that is beyond any kind of limitations. You're not limited by anything, right? So this reduction base, if this doesn't work, if this is not something you can go and experience yourself, then screw the philosophy. Because all it will possibly be is trying to convince you of something that cannot be described with this reduction base. Or that is a false reduction base in order to get away with shit that you wouldn't otherwise be able to get away with if you have a decent reduction base that would hold you back, right?
Where nature wants to be next day with you, what you're supposed to do next. You don't have the global picture of a super plan. I don't think nature has it either. It's a game of warm and cold. You're getting warmer, you're getting colder, you correct your path. But there is a richness and a depthless, well, not depthless, a bottomless richness of purpose when you surrender goals.
Yes. So
if you understand
yeah,
what
I
I'm
do.
trying to
Could
say.
I summarize it thus?
I fucking don't understand what you're saying, right? Because it's bullshit. You're just coming up with shit, right? This is not philosophy. This is mysticism. It's just I have disconnected myself from an experiential reduction base in order to go and come up with whatever bullshit I want to come up with in order to remove my existential angst, right? He's basically saying that the meaning of my life is the big mind's meaning. I can't come up with a meaning. It's just rolled out to me, right? And I just have to get, it's a little warmer, it's a little colder, but it's just, I'm just here to basically be pounded on by something that is bigger than me, right? If this is supposed to remove existential angst from you, it's only being compounded with this kind of thinking, in my opinion, right? And I'm not trying to say I don't like that philosophy, right? Yes, I don't like it because it's bad philosophy, but the foundation they're using in order to get there is dysfunctional. So that's why it doesn't work, right? And if you say, but yeah, I like it anyway, well, then you're just saying, okay, but you're just grabbing whatever you want to be good philosophy in order to fit with your agenda. You already have some preconceived ideas where the dots should be connected to, and you're just finding, cherry picking whatever terms and whatever in order to get there, in order to say, aha, I solved it, and now I can lean back and be satisfied in the thing I had already come up before I connected the dots using this kind of freaky philosophy. So I think I basically, I don't need to get any deeper here, right? So it's fine to stop here and say, well, I've got halfway, and hopefully they won't shoot me for doing this. They should be thankful, in my opinion, right? But what am I left with after deconstructing this in 7 hours, maybe, of halfway, 1 hour and 20 minutes of their philosophy here? I'm basically left with less than I started with, right? If anything, I have only become more solidified in my own philosophy rather than trying to adapt any of this, because this smells like a big fucking mystic turd, right? I would rather eat my own feces than adapt this philosophy, right? Like Pasolini would probably love, or at least love some people doing, right? To refer to his quote of Pasolini, if you are choosing somebody to quote in your philosophy, why would Pasolini be on the top, right? This crazy gay communist Christian, right? Why would that be on the top of the list of fitting quotes? I don't think so, right? Eat your own shit or whatever, measure young men's dicks in order to whatever, right? Thank you for coming this far. I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you can get back and do some good philosophy of your own based on this. I want to always encourage you to think for yourself and be very critical of everything you hear, and that includes me too, right? Don't take anything I say for granted, right? Otherwise, please share, like, and subscribe. Consider a donation. I would appreciate that. There's also a link to a Discord board where you can discuss philosophy. And beyond that, see you in the next one.